I was standing at the kitchen island, carefully searing salmon for the anniversary dinner Richard would forget, when the phone buzzed and up popped his name. "Hey babe, I'm just calling to remind you I'm heading to Palm Springs with the family this weekend. Oh, and don't forget to water my succulents." That was the third year in a row the whole family vacation didn't include me. The salmon hissed. So did I. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. "Richard," I said, gripping the spatula like a weapon, "it's our anniversary dinner tonight. Remember? The one I've been planning for 3 weeks." "Oh, right. Listen, something came up at the firm. Can we rain check? You understand." I understood all right. I understood that my husband had become a master class in selective memory and convenient excuses. Of course I understand. I understand perfectly. After he hung up, I stared at the perfectly prepared meal that would now feed one. Again. Welcome to my life in Meadowbrook Estates, where the lawns are emerald green, the gossip flows like wine, and apparently, wives are optional accessories. Let me paint you a picture of suburban paradise. Meadowbrook Estates sits in Southern California like a movie set, too perfect to be real, yet somehow inhabited by actual humans with actual problems. Every house looks like it was designed by the same architect who had an unhealthy obsession with beige stucco and red tile roofs. The Homeowners Association rules are stricter than most prison systems, and God help you if your grass grows a millimeter too high. I'm Carolyn Miller, 34 years old, and until recently, I thought I was living the American dream. Marketing director at a tech startup, married to Richard Peterson, a successful lawyer who drives a BMW and owns more suits than I have shoes. We've been married for 6 years, and for the first 4, I actually believed we were happy. The cracks started showing about 2 years ago, right around the time Richard's mother decided I wasn't good enough for her precious son. Mrs. Eleanor Peterson, never call her Ellie, she'll freeze you with a look that could stop global warming, is the kind of woman who measures worth by the number of zeros in your trust fund. Since I come from a middle-class family in Ohio, I apparently scored a big fat 0. Then there's Diane, Richard's sister, who treats family loyalty like an oath. She's the self-appointed queen of our neighborhood's Facebook group, Meadowbrook Moms and More, where she posts passive-aggressive updates about family values and the importance of supporting the right people. I discovered that particular gem last month when Brenda, my best friend, and the neighborhood's unofficial gossip coordinator showed me the screenshots. Brenda lives 3 houses down with her husband Tom and their twin boys. She's a former journalist who gave up her career to raise kids and now channels her investigative skills into neighborhood surveillance. If something happens in Meadowbrook, Brenda knows about it before the security cameras do. "You need to see this," she had said, sliding her phone across my kitchen counter. "Diane posted this yesterday." The post read, "So grateful for family who understand what loyalty means. Praying for those who try to divide families. Family first, Jarsi blessed with the right people." The comments were even better. Mrs. Peterson had responded with 3 heart emojis and "raised you right, sweetheart." Several other neighborhood moms had chimed in with their own cryptic messages of support. "They're talking about me, aren't they?" I had asked Brenda. "Honey, they're not exactly being subtle." That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, Richard had become increasingly distant. More late nights at the office, more weekend trips with the family that somehow never included his wife, more conversations that ended abruptly when I walked into the room. Tonight, staring at the abandoned anniversary dinner, I finally admitted what I'd been avoiding for months. My marriage was falling apart, and I was the only one trying to save it. I poured myself a generous glass of wine and called Brenda. "Let me guess," she said before I could speak. "Richard bailed on dinner." "How did you know?" Because I saw him leave 20 minutes ago with an overnight bag. Also, his car isn't in your driveway. I walked to the front window and peered through the blinds. She was right. His BMW was gone. Where do you think he went? I asked. Honestly, I think it's time you found out. What do you mean? I mean, Carolyn, you're one of the smartest women I know. You run marketing campaigns that generate millions of dollars. You can analyze consumer behavior and predict market trends. But when it comes to your own husband, you're acting like you need a permission slip to ask questions. She was right, and we both knew it. I'd been so focused on being the perfect wife, the understanding partner, the woman who never made waves, that I'd forgotten I had every right to know what was happening in my own marriage. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that maybe it's time you did a little investigating of your own. Richard's office is right there in your house. When's the last time you went in there? I don't go in there. It's his private space. Carolyn, you live there. You pay half the mortgage. Nothing in that house should be private from you. After we hung up, I stood in the hallway outside Richard's office. The door was locked, which struck me as odd. We'd never locked doors from each other before. The room beyond was Richard's sanctuary. Dark leather furniture, law books, awards and certificates covering the walls. His desk was always perfectly organized, not a paper out of place. I tried the handle again. Definitely locked. That's when I remembered the emergency key. When we first moved in, Richard had hidden spare keys around the house, just in case. I'd thought it was paranoid at the time, but now I was grateful for his compulsive need to control every detail. The key was exactly where I remembered, taped under his college debate trophy in the back of our bedroom closet. My hands were shaking as I peeled away the old tape. Standing outside his office door again, key in hand, I hesitated. This felt like crossing a line, violating some unspoken rule of marriage. But then I thought about the anniversary dinner cooling on the kitchen counter, about 3 years of family vacations that didn't include me, about Diane's Facebook posts and Mrs. Peterson's icy smiles. I slid the key into the lock and turned it. The door opened with a soft click, and I stepped into Richard's private world. Everything was exactly as I expected. Neat, organized, intimidatingly professional. His computer was password protected, naturally, but I wasn't looking for digital secrets. I was looking for something more tangible. That's when I noticed the safe. It was built into the wall behind his desk, hidden behind a framed photo of us from our wedding day. The irony wasn't lost on me. I stared at our younger selves, both smiling like we had the world figured out. The woman in that photo had no idea what was coming. I moved the picture aside and stared at the electronic keypad. What would Richard use as a combination? I tried our anniversary date. Nothing. His birthday. Nothing. My birthday. I almost laughed at my own optimism. Nothing. Then I tried his mother's birthday. The safe opened with a soft beep. Inside, there were documents, bank statements, and a manila envelope that made me feel a sudden unease. I pulled everything out with trembling hands and spread it across Richard's desk. The first document was a deed to our house. But something was wrong. The original deed, the one I remembered signing, listed us as tenants in common, meaning we each owned 50%. This new deed showed joint tenancy, which would mean everything went to the survivor if one of us died. But my signature looked off. The more I stared at it, the more certain I became that someone had forged it. The bank statements were worse. Richard had been moving money from our joint accounts into a private account I'd never seen before. Over the past 18 months, he'd transferred nearly $200,000. Our rainy day fund, the money we'd been saving for a bigger house, for kids, for our future, it was gone. But the manila envelope contained the real bombshell. Inside were photographs. Richard with a woman I didn't recognize. Blonde, younger than me, with the kind of smile that probably made men forget their own names. They were at a restaurant I'd never been to, holding hands across a candlelit table. In another photo, they were on a beach, his arm around her waist, both of them laughing at some private joke. There was also a receipt from Tiffany & Co., a diamond necklace, $25,000, purchased 3 days ago. I had never received a $25,000 necklace from my husband. Hell, I'd been lucky to get flowers on Valentine's Day. At the bottom of the envelope was a business card. Heather Jones, certified yoga instructor. Her address was in Palm Springs, where Richard was spending the weekend with his family. I sat in his leather chair, surrounded by the evidence of his betrayal, and felt something shift inside me. The hurt was there, sharp and immediate, but underneath it was something else. Something harder and more dangerous. Anger. I carefully photographed everything with my phone, then put it all back exactly as I'd found it. The safe closed with the same soft beep, and I repositioned the wedding photo to hide it. As I locked the office door behind me, I heard Richard's car in the driveway. I ran to the kitchen, tossed the key in the junk drawer, and was back at the stove pretending to clean up dinner when he walked in. "Hey, babe," he said, not even looking at me. "I'm just grabbing a few things and heading out. Big case, you know how it is." "Of course," I said, keeping my voice steady. "How long will you be gone?" "Just the weekend, maybe Monday." He paused at the kitchen doorway. "You're not upset about dinner, are you? We can do something special when I get back." I turned to face him, this man I'd shared a bed with for 6 years, and felt like I was looking at a stranger. "I'm not upset, Richard. I'm fine." He smiled, the same charming smile that had won me over in law school. "That's my girl, always so understanding." After he left, I poured another glass of wine and called Brenda back. "How did it go?" she asked. "I need to see you. Tonight. And Brenda, bring your laptop, we have work to do." An hour later, Brenda sat at my kitchen table, scrolling through the photos I'd taken while I paced behind her. "Holy shit, Carolyn." "I know. No, I mean holy shit. This isn't just an affair. This is fraud. He forged your signature on legal documents. He's been stealing from your joint accounts. This is serious criminal behavior." I stopped pacing. What do I do? First, you call a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. A good one. Someone who specializes in divorce and financial crimes. Second, you gather more evidence. And third... She looked up at me with a grin that reminded me why she'd been such a good investigative reporter. Third, you make him pay. I don't want revenge, Brenda. I just want out. Honey, after what he's done to you, getting out is revenge. But we're going to make sure you get everything you're entitled to, plus damages for what he's stolen. By the time we're done with Richard Peterson, he's going to wish he'd never heard your name. As I went to bed that night, alone as usual, I thought about the woman in those photographs. Heather Jones, yoga instructor, homewrecker. Did she know Richard was married? Did she care? More importantly, did Richard's family know about her? Was that why I'd been excluded from their cozy little gatherings? I fell asleep planning my next move, and for the first time in months, I felt like I had some control over my life. I had no idea how much control I was about to take. I woke up Saturday morning with the kind of clarity that only comes after your world has been completely shattered and rebuilt overnight. Richard was in Palm Springs with his yoga instructor girlfriend. His mother and sister were probably toasting my absence with mimosas, and I was finally free to do what I should have done months ago. Fight back. Brenda arrived at 8 a.m. sharp with coffee, pastries, and the name of a lawyer. "Michael Wallace," she said, sliding a business card across my counter. "He handled my cousin's divorce last year. The husband tried to hide assets in offshore accounts. Michael found every penny and got her 70% of everything." 70%. Turns out hiding money from your spouse is frowned upon by family court judges. Who knew? I called Michael Wallace's emergency line and explained the situation. His voice was calm, professional, and reassuring. "Mrs. Peterson, what your husband has done constitutes several serious crimes. Document forgery, theft, fraud, Any one of these could result in criminal charges. But first, we need to secure your assets and gather more evidence. Can you meet me at my office this afternoon? Absolutely. And Mrs. Peterson, don't confront your husband yet. Don't let him know you're aware of his activities. The element of surprise is our greatest advantage. After the call, Brenda and I sat at my kitchen table planning my day, like generals preparing for battle. First stop, the county recorder's office, Brenda said, consulting the notes she'd made. We need to get a certified copy of the original deed to your house. That'll prove the signature was forged. Then what? Then we visit every bank where you and Richard have accounts. We're going to freeze everything. Can I do that? Honey, you're his wife. Your name is on those accounts. You have every right to protect your assets. The county recorder's office was exactly the kind of bureaucratic nightmare you'd expect. Fluorescent lights, uncomfortable chairs, and clerks who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. But the woman who helped me, Janet, was surprisingly sympathetic when I explained what I needed. "Oh, sweetie," she said, shaking her head as she pulled up our property records. "I see this more often than you'd think. Here's your original deed, filed 6 years ago, and here's the amended deed, filed 8 months ago." She printed both documents and laid them side by side. The difference was obvious. On the original, my signature was neat, careful, exactly how I always signed legal documents. On the amended deed, the signature was close, but not quite right. The C in Carolyn was too elaborate, and the M in Miller was too small. "This is definitely forgery," Janet said quietly. "You should report this to the police." "I will. But first, I need to protect myself financially." Armed with the evidence, Brenda and I spent the rest of the morning visiting banks. At each stop, I explained that I suspected fraudulent activity on our accounts and requested that all transactions be frozen pending investigation. The reaction was the same everywhere: immediate concern, lots of forms to fill out, and assurances that they would investigate thoroughly. At our primary bank, the manager, David Kim, was particularly helpful. "Mrs. Peterson, I have to tell you, there have been some unusual transactions on your accounts recently. Large transfers to external accounts, significant cash withdrawals. We flagged them as potentially suspicious, but didn't act because they appeared to have both signatures. How much money are we talking about?" He consulted his computer. "Over the past 18 months, approximately $400,000 has been moved out of your joint accounts." I felt the room spin. $400,000, not the $200 I'd seen in the statements from Richard's safe. He'd been stealing from me for longer than I'd realized. Where did the money go? Several different accounts. Some appear to be personal accounts, in your husband's name only. Others went to what looks like real estate investments. Real estate investments. I thought about Heather Jones and her address in Palm Springs. "Mr. Kim, I need copies of all these transactions, everything." "Of course. And, Mrs. Peterson, I'm sorry this happened to you. We see this sometimes, and it's always devastating." By the time we finished at the banks, I had a folder full of evidence and a growing sense of rage. Richard hadn't just been cheating on me, he'd been systematically stealing from me, forging my signature, and planning what looked like a complete financial takeover of our marriage. That afternoon, I met with Michael Wallace in his downtown office. He was exactly what I'd hoped for: mid-50s, sharp suit, and the kind of confidence that comes from winning cases other lawyers wouldn't touch. "Mrs. Peterson," he said after reviewing my evidence, "your husband has committed multiple felonies. The question is whether you want to pursue this criminally or handle it through divorce court." "What's the difference?" "Criminal charges could result in jail time for your husband, but the process is slower and you have less control over the outcome. Divorce court is faster, and we can use the evidence of his crimes to ensure you get the maximum settlement." "How maximum are we talking?" "Given the fraud, the forgery, and the theft, I'd say 70 to 80% of all marital assets, plus damages. We might even be able to recover some of the money he's already stolen. I thought about Richard's smug smile when he left for his weekend with Heather. I thought about his mother's condescending comments and Diane's Facebook posts. I thought about 3 years of family gatherings I wasn't invited to and anniversary dinners eaten alone. "Let's destroy him," I said. Michael smiled. "Now you're speaking my language." That evening, I sat in my living room with a bottle of wine and my laptop, doing research on Heather Jones. It didn't take long to find her social media profiles. Yoga instructors aren't exactly known for their privacy settings. Her Instagram was a masterclass in lifestyle envy. Photos of her teaching classes in expensive workout gear, smoothie bowls that probably cost more than my lunch budget, and inspirational quotes about living your truth and following your heart. But the interesting posts were the recent ones. A photo of her in front of a beautiful house with the caption "New Beginnings," a picture of an expensive handbag with "treating myself," and most damning of all, a photo of a diamond necklace, the same necklace from the Tiffany receipt I'd found in Richard's safe. The caption read, "When someone special shows you how much you mean to them. Blessed love wins, Diamond Girl." I screenshotted everything and sent it to Michael Wallace with a note. "Found where some of our money went." His response was immediate. "Perfect. This establishes a clear connection between the stolen funds and the affair. We can use this to argue for additional damages." Sunday morning, I woke up feeling more energized than I had in months. Richard would be back tonight, probably expecting to find me waiting with dinner and a smile, ready to hear about his wonderful weekend with the family. Instead, he was going to find divorce papers and a wife who finally knew how to fight back. Brenda came over around noon with Chinese takeout and moral support. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Honestly, I feel amazing. For the first time in years, I feel like myself again." "What's the plan for when he gets home?" "Michael says I should act normal until the papers are served tomorrow morning. Don't give him any warning that might make him try to hide more assets." "Can you do that? Can you sit across from him at dinner and pretend everything's fine?" I thought about it. A week ago, the answer would have been no. I would have broken down, confronted him, probably ended up apologizing for snooping through his things. But that was before I knew the truth. That was before I realized that the man I'd been trying so hard to please had been systematically destroying our marriage and stealing my future. "Yeah," I said, "I can do that. In fact, I'm looking forward to it." Richard came home around 8 p.m., looking tanned and relaxed. He kissed my cheek like nothing had happened, like he hadn't spent the weekend with another woman using money he'd stolen from his wife. "How was your weekend?" I asked, setting the table for dinner. "Great, really great. Mom and Diane send their love." I bet they did. "What did you guys do?" "Oh, relaxed by the pool, had some nice dinners. Nothing too exciting." I served him his favorite meal, grilled chicken with roasted vegetables, and listened to him lie about his weekend. He was good at it. I had to give him credit. If I hadn't seen the photos, hadn't found the receipts, I might have believed him. "You seem different," he said halfway through dinner. "Happier." "Do I? I guess I had a good weekend too. Spent some time with Brenda, did a little reading, caught up on some work." "That's great, babe. I'm glad you're finding ways to keep yourself busy." "Keep myself busy, like I was a child who needed entertainment while the adults went off to have real lives." "Richard," I said, taking a sip of wine, "do you ever think about our future? Where we'll be in 5 years, 10 years?" He looked uncomfortable. "Sure, of course. Why?" "I just wonder sometimes if we want the same things." "What do you mean?" "I mean, we've been married for 6 years, and sometimes I feel like we're living completely separate lives. You have your work, your family, your interests. I have mine. We're like roommates who happen to share a bed." "Carolyn, where is this coming from? We're fine. We're happy." "Are we? When's the last time we talked about having children? When's the last time we planned a vacation together? When's the last time you included me in anything involving your family? My family is complicated, you know that. Complicated how? He pushed his food around his plate, clearly wanting to be anywhere else. They have strong opinions about things. It's easier sometimes if I'm not there. That's not what I said. But it's what you meant. He reached across the table and took my hand. His touch felt foreign, like a stranger's. Carolyn, I love you. You know that, right? Sometimes I just need space to handle family stuff without worrying about how it affects you. The lie came so easily to him. I wondered how many times he'd practiced it, how many times he'd used similar words to justify his betrayal. I understand, I said, squeezing his hand. I love you too. We finished dinner in relative silence, and Richard went to his office to catch up on some work. I cleaned the kitchen and went to bed, knowing it would be the last night I'd ever share a bed with my husband. The next morning, Richard left for work at his usual time. At exactly 9 a.m., a process server knocked on our door. Mrs. Peterson, I have some documents for your husband. He's at work. Can I sign for them? Actually, I need to serve him personally. Can you give me his work address? I wrote down the address of Richard's law firm and watched the process server drive away. Then I called Michael Wallace. It's done, he said. Your husband will be served within the hour. Are you ready for this? I'm ready. He's going to be angry. He's going to try to contact you, probably try to convince you to drop the charges. Don't engage with him. Let me handle all communication from now on. What happens next? Next, we go to court and we take him for everything he's worth. I hung up and sat in my kitchen, looking around at the house that had been my home for 6 years. By this time next week, it would be mine alone. The thought should have been sad, but instead, I felt liberated. My phone buzzed with a text from Brenda. How are you doing? I typed back, never better, phase 1 complete. Phase 1? Oh, we're just getting started. I spent the rest of the morning researching Heather Jones's yoga studio and making some very interesting discoveries. The business had been struggling financially until about 8 months ago, when suddenly they'd expanded, renovated, and started offering expensive retreat packages. 8 months ago. Right around the time Richard started moving large amounts of money out of our accounts. I made some calls, did some digging, and by noon I had enough information to make Michael Wallace very happy. Richard called at 12:47 p.m. Carolyn, what the hell is this? Divorce papers? Are you insane? I let it go to voicemail. He called again at 1:15. We need to talk. This is crazy. Come home right now so we can discuss this like adults. Voicemail. At 2:30 he showed up at the house. I watched through the window as he tried his key and found that the locks had been changed. Michael had arranged for that too. Richard pounded on the door. Carolyn, open this door right now. This is my house. Actually, as of this morning, it was my house. The emergency injunction Michael had filed gave me exclusive use of the marital home pending the outcome of the divorce. Carolyn, I know you're in there. We can work this out. Whatever you think you know, we can fix it. I sat in my living room, sipping tea and watching my husband of 6 years have a complete meltdown on our front lawn. Several neighbors had come out to watch the show, including Brenda, who gave me a thumbs up through the window. After 20 minutes, Richard gave up and left. My phone immediately rang. This time, I answered. Hello, Richard. What do you want? Money? Is this about money? Because we can work something out. This isn't about money. Then what? What did I do that was so terrible you want to destroy our marriage? I almost laughed. You really don't know? No, I don't know. I've been a good husband to you. I work hard. I provide for us. You've been stealing from me for 18 months. You forged my signature on legal documents. You've been having an affair with a yoga instructor named Heather Jones. And you've been using our money to fund her lifestyle and her business. Silence. Richard, are you still there? How did you... He stopped himself. How did I find out? I'm not as stupid as you thought I was. Carolyn, listen to me. This isn't what it looks like. It looks like you've been planning to leave me while systematically stealing everything we've built together. It looks like you've been lying to me for years, while your family helped you isolate me and push me out. It looks like you're a cheating, thieving, pathetic excuse for a husband. You can't prove any of this. Actually, I can. Bank records, forged documents, photographs, receipts. I can prove all of it. Another long silence. What do you want? He asked finally. I want everything you stole from me. I want the house. I want 70% of all our assets. I want you to stay away from me while this plays out in court. And Richard... What? I want you to know that I'm going to enjoy watching you lose everything. I hung up and immediately called Michael Wallace. He's been served, I said, and he knows I have evidence. How did he take it? About as well as you'd expect. He tried to deny it, then tried to bargain. They always do. Don't worry, Mrs. Peterson. By the time we're finished with him, Richard Peterson is going to regret the day he decided to betray you. As I hung up, I realized something had changed inside me. The hurt was still there, but it was buried under something much stronger. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was dangerous. And Richard had no idea what was coming next. Tuesday morning brought the first real surprise of my new life as a woman scorned. I was having coffee with Brenda in her chaotic kitchen, kids running around, cartoon characters blaring from the TV, the beautiful mess of a real family, when my phone rang. Mrs. Peterson, this is Detective Sarah Martinez with the Financial Crimes Unit. We received a report about potential fraud involving your accounts. My heart skipped. Yes, that's right. My lawyer filed the report yesterday. We'd like to meet with you this afternoon if possible. What your husband has done appears to be part of a larger pattern we've been investigating. A larger pattern? I can't discuss details over the phone, but let's just say Mr. Peterson may have been busier than you realized. After I hung up, Brenda looked at me with raised eyebrows. Larger pattern? I have no idea, but I'm about to find out. Detective Martinez was a small woman with sharp eyes and the kind of presence that made you want to confess crimes you hadn't committed. We met at the police station, where she spread out files that made my evidence look like amateur hour. Mrs. Peterson, your husband has been under investigation for 6 months. We've been tracking a series of financial crimes involving forged documents, identity theft, and money laundering. Money laundering? Richard Peterson has been using his law practice to facilitate illegal financial transactions. Fake real estate deals, shell companies, fraudulent investment schemes. Your case just gave us the final piece we needed. She showed me documents I'd never seen before. Bank accounts in my name that I'd never opened. Real estate transactions with my forged signature. Investment accounts that had been drained and closed. How much money are we talking about? Conservative estimate, about $2 million over the past 3 years. I felt sick. $2 million? The good news is that, as his victim, you'll be entitled to restitution. The bad news is that most of the money is gone. Your husband has been very thorough in covering his tracks. Where did it all go? Detective Martinez pulled out a familiar photo. Heather Jones, but not the yoga instructor version from Instagram. This was a professional headshot with the caption, Heather Jones, real estate developer. Your husband's girlfriend isn't just a yoga instructor. She's a real estate developer who's been using your husband's stolen money to fund luxury property developments in Palm Springs and Las Vegas. The room was spinning. She's in on it. Up to her perfectly manicured fingernails. This has been a sophisticated operation, Mrs. Peterson. Your husband would steal the money, Heather would launder it through fake real estate deals, and they'd split the profits. How long has this been going on? We think about 3 years. Right around the time your husband started excluding you from family events. The pieces clicked into place. The family vacations I wasn't invited to. The locked office. The sudden distance in our marriage. Richard hadn't just fallen out of love with me. He'd been planning to rob me blind and disappear. What happens now? Now we arrest them both. But first, we need your help with something. She slid another document across the table. It was a deed to a property in Las Vegas, a luxury condo development called Desert Oasis. The purchase price was $1.2 million, and it was signed with my name. We believe this is their endgame property. They're planning to sell it and disappear with the profits. The sale is scheduled for this Friday. What do you need me to do? We need you to show up to that sale and stop it. As the legal owner, since it was purchased with your money using your forged signature, you have the right to halt the transaction. I stared at the document. You want me to confront them? We want you to help us catch them in the act. We'll have agents there, but we need you to make the initial challenge to the sale. Once they try to proceed with the fraudulent transaction, we can arrest them for conspiracy, fraud, and money laundering. This was bigger than divorce court. This was criminal prosecution that could put Richard and Heather in prison for years. I'll do it, I said. That evening, I called Michael Wallace to update him on the criminal investigation. This changes everything, he said. If the criminal case proceeds, you'll likely recover most of your stolen assets through restitution. Plus, the criminal charges will make the divorce proceedings much simpler. How so? It's hard to argue for 50% of marital assets when you're in prison for stealing them. Wednesday and Thursday passed in a blur of preparation. Detective Martinez coached me on what to say and do at the property sale. Michael Wallace filed additional motions to freeze every account connected to Richard or Heather. I practiced staying calm while my entire world shifted around me. Friday morning, I drove to Las Vegas with Detective Martinez and 2 other officers. The property sale was scheduled for 2 p.m. at a high-end real estate office on the Strip. Remember, Detective Martinez said as we parked outside the building, you don't know about the criminal investigation. As far as they know, you're just a suspicious wife who discovered the property transaction. Let them dig their own grave. I walked into the real estate office, wearing my best business suit and the kind of confidence that comes from knowing you're about to destroy someone who deserves it. The scene was exactly what I'd expected. Richard sat at a conference table in an expensive suit, looking every inch the successful lawyer. Next to him was Heather, but not the yoga instructor from Instagram. This version wore a tailored dress and carried herself like someone who'd been making million-dollar deals her whole life. Across from them sat a real estate agent and what appeared to be the buyers, a middle-aged couple who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. "Excuse me," I said, walking into the conference room. "I think there's been a mistake." Richard's face went white. "Carolyn, what are you doing here?" "I'm here because this property was purchased using my money and my forged signature. This sale is fraudulent, and I'm here to stop it." Heather recovered first. "I'm sorry, but who are you exactly?" "I'm Carolyn Peterson, Richard's wife, and you must be Heather Jones, the woman who's been helping my husband steal from me for the past 3 years." The real estate agent looked confused. "Mr. Peterson, you said you were single." "There's been a misunderstanding," Richard said, standing up. "Carolyn, we can discuss this privately." "No, Richard. We're going to discuss this right here in front of everyone." I pulled out the folder Detective Martinez had given me and spread the documents across the conference table. Bank records showing the stolen money. The forged deed with my signature. Photos of Richard and Heather together. "This property was purchased with money stolen from my accounts," I said to the buyers. "The signature on the purchase documents is forged. If you proceed with this sale, you'll be purchasing stolen property." The buyers looked at each other and started gathering their things. "We're not interested in getting involved in fraud," the husband said. "Wait," Heather said desperately. "This is all a misunderstanding. This woman is clearly unstable. She's been stalking us, making false accusations." "False accusations?" I laughed. "Richard, tell them about the $2 million you've stolen from me over the past 3 years." Tell them about the fake real estate deals and the shell companies. Richard's composure finally cracked. You have no idea what you're talking about. You're going to regret this. The only thing I regret is not figuring out what you were years ago. That's when Detective Martinez walked in with two other officers. Richard Peterson and Heather Jones, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, money laundering, and identity theft. The look on Richard's face was worth every moment of pain he'd caused me. Pure shock, followed by the dawning realization that his carefully constructed criminal enterprise was collapsing around him. You set this up, he said to me as the officers handcuffed him. I didn't set anything up, Richard. I just stopped pretending to be blind. As they led him away, Richard turned back to me. This isn't over, Carolyn. My family will never let this stand. Your family, I called after him. You mean the family that's been helping you commit crimes? I think they're going to have bigger problems to worry about. Detective Martinez smiled as she watched the arrest. That went even better than we hoped. They basically confessed to everything. What happens now? Now they get booked, arraigned, and we start building the prosecution case. You should have your money back within 6 months, plus damages. I drove back to California, feeling like a completely different person than the woman who discovered her husband's betrayal just 1 week earlier. That woman had been hurt, confused, and desperate to save her marriage. This woman was dangerous, but I wasn't done yet. Richard had mentioned his family, and I knew they'd been complicit in his crimes. Mrs. Peterson's condescending comments, Diane's Facebook posts, the years of exclusion and manipulation, they'd all been part of a plan to isolate me while Richard robbed me blind. It was time to deal with them, too. Saturday morning, I was having coffee in my kitchen when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Mrs. Peterson and Diane standing on my doorstep, both looking like they'd rather be handling radioactive waste. I opened the door with my sweetest smile. Eleanor, Diane, what a lovely surprise. We need to talk, Mrs. Peterson said, pushing past me into the house. Of course. Can I get you some coffee? Tea? Or perhaps you'd prefer something stronger. I imagine you've had a difficult few days. They sat in my living room like they owned the place, which was ironic considering their son had tried to steal it from me. Carolyn, Diane said, we need to discuss the situation with Richard. What situation is that? Don't play games, Mrs. Peterson snapped. You've had him arrested on false charges. This vendetta of yours has gone too far. Vendetta? Is that what you call it when someone reports crimes to the police? Richard made some mistakes, Diane said, but he's a good man who loves you. This can all be worked out if you just drop the charges. I sat across from them, studying their faces. They actually believed they could manipulate me into backing down. Let me make sure I understand, I said. You want me to ignore the fact that Richard stole $2 million from me, forged my signature on legal documents, and has been planning to leave me penniless while he runs off with his criminal girlfriend. It's not that simple, Mrs. Peterson said. Actually, it is exactly that simple. But what I'm curious about is how much you two knew about Richard's crimes. They exchanged a look that told me everything I needed to know. We didn't know anything, Diane said too quickly. Really? Because the FBI seems to think otherwise. That was a lie, but their faces went pale, so I continued. They're very interested in the family trips to Palm Springs. Apparently, some of those trips coincided with major money transfers and property purchases. They're also looking into whether Richard's law practice was used to launder money for other clients. That's impossible, Mrs. Peterson said, but her voice shook. Is it? Because I'm starting to wonder if Richard's criminal enterprise was a family business. I mean, you both worked so hard to exclude me from family events. Were you afraid I'd figure out what you were all up to? I was fishing, but their reactions told me I was close to something. You're insane, Diane said, standing up. Come on, Mom, we don't have to listen to this. Actually, you do, I said, because here's what's going to happen. Richard is going to prison. Heather is going to prison. And if I find out either of you were involved in their crimes, you'll join them. You can't prove anything, Mrs. Peterson said. Maybe not, but I don't have to prove anything. The FBI will do that for me. After they left, I called Detective Martinez. How much do you know about Richard's family? I asked. Why do you ask? Because they just paid me a visit, and they seemed awfully nervous about the investigation. Interesting. We haven't looked into them yet, but maybe we should. I think you should. And Detective, when you do look into them, you might want to check their financial records around the same time Richard was moving money around. We'll definitely do that. Thanks for the tip. That evening, Brenda came over with wine and Chinese food to celebrate. So, how does it feel to be a crime-fighting superhero? She asked. It feels amazing. For the first time in years, I feel like myself again. What's next? I thought about that. Richard was in jail awaiting trial. Heather was in jail awaiting trial. The FBI was investigating the Peterson family. I was going to get my money back, plus damages. The divorce would be finalized within a few months. Next, I think I'm going to take that job offer in Singapore. Singapore? The company I've been consulting for offered me a director position last month. I turned it down because Richard didn't want to leave his family and his practice. And now? Now, Richard doesn't get a vote in my decisions. We clinked glasses, and I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Freedom. But even as we celebrated, I knew this wasn't over. The Petersons weren't the type of family to accept defeat gracefully. They'd try to retaliate somehow, try to make me pay for destroying their golden boy. Let them try. I was no longer the naive woman who'd spent 6 years trying to earn their approval. I was someone much more dangerous, and I was just getting started. Monday morning brought news that made my coffee taste even better than usual. Detective Martinez called with an update that had me grinning like a fool. We executed search warrants on the Peterson family properties this weekend, she said. Your mother-in-law and sister-in-law have been very busy. How busy? Busy enough to join Richard and Heather in federal custody. Turns out the Peterson family crime syndicate was more extensive than we thought. I nearly dropped my phone. They arrested Eleanor and Diane. Friday afternoon, we found evidence that they've been helping Richard launder money for the past 2 years. Mrs. Peterson's house was purchased with stolen funds, and Diane's been running a fake charity that was actually a money laundering operation. A fake charity? Family's First Foundation. Ring a bell? It did. Diane had been promoting it on social media for months, asking for donations to help families in crisis. I'd even contributed $500 last Christmas. They were stealing charity donations. Among other things, your $500 donation went straight into an account that funded Richard's affair. The irony was so perfect I had to laugh. I'd literally paid for my husband's betrayal. What happens now? Now they all get to enjoy federal prison while we recover your assets. Speaking of which, we found something interesting in Mrs. Peterson's safe. What? Insurance policies. Life insurance policies on you specifically. 3 different policies, totaling $2 million, all taken out in the past 18 months. The room went cold. Life insurance? With Richard as the beneficiary, naturally. The premiums were paid with money stolen from your accounts. I sat down hard. They were planning to harm me. We can't prove that, but the timing is suspicious. The policies were purchased right around the time Richard started moving large amounts of money and excluding you from family events. They were isolating me so no one would ask questions if something happened. It's possible, but here's the good news. All those policies are now evidence in a criminal case, and the insurance companies will be refunding the premiums to you. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen trying to process what I'd learned. My husband hadn't just been stealing from me and cheating on me. His entire family had been planning what sounded like my murder. The woman I'd been a week ago would have been terrified. She would have packed a bag and run somewhere safe, maybe hired bodyguards, definitely had a nervous breakdown. But I wasn't that woman anymore. I was angry. I called Michael Wallace and filled him in on the latest developments. This changes everything, he said. With the entire Peterson family in federal custody, the divorce becomes much simpler. We can probably get the house, all remaining assets, and significant damages. How significant? Given the scope of their crimes and the life insurance policies, I'd say we're looking at everything they own, plus punitive damages. You're going to come out of this very well, Mrs. Peterson. It's Miller now. I'm going back to my maiden name. Noted. Ms. Miller, there is one thing you should know. The Peterson family has hired a very expensive defense attorney. They're going to fight this hard. Let them fight. I have the truth on my side. That afternoon, I decided to do something I'd been putting off. I drove to Richard's law office to collect my personal items. The office manager, Janet, met me at the door with a sympathetic smile and a box of my belongings. I'm so sorry about all this, Mrs. Peterson. We had no idea what Richard was doing. It's Miller now, and thank you for gathering my things. Actually, there's something else. We found some documents in Richard's desk that we think belong to you. She handed me a folder containing copies of all the forged documents, deeds, bank transfers, insurance policies. But there was also something else, a detailed plan written in Richard's handwriting, outlining how they intended to frame me for mental instability. The plan was chillingly thorough. They were going to have me committed to a psychiatric facility, claim I was having a breakdown, and use that as justification for Richard to take control of all our assets. The life insurance policies weren't for murder. They were backup in case the psychiatric plan didn't work. Where did you find this? I asked Janet. Hidden in his desk drawer. The FBI missed it during their search, but I found it when I was cleaning out his office. I drove home with the folder on my passenger seat, my hands shaking with rage. The Peterson family hadn't just been stealing from me. They'd been planning to destroy my entire life, my reputation, my freedom. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated me. That evening, I called a press conference. Well, not exactly a press conference. I called Brenda, who called her former colleagues at the local newspaper, who called the TV stations. By 6 p.m., I had 3 reporters and 2 camera crews in my living room. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, sitting in my living room with the evidence spread across my coffee table, I want to tell you about the Peterson family crime syndicate and how they tried to destroy an innocent woman. I told them everything. The forged documents, the stolen money, the fake charity, the life insurance policies, and the plan to have me committed. I showed them the evidence, the bank records, the psychiatric commitment plan written in Richard's own handwriting. The reporters ate it up. Mrs. Peterson, excuse me, Ms. Miller. How did you discover all this? Asked the reporter from Channel 7. I did what every woman should do when her husband starts acting suspicious. I investigated. What would you say to other women who might be in similar situations? I'd say trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And don't be afraid to fight back. The story aired on the 11 o'clock news and was picked up by national outlets by morning. By Tuesday afternoon, I was getting calls from producers wanting to turn my story into a documentary. But the best call came from Detective Martinez. Ms. Miller, I thought you should know. The Peterson family's defense attorney just called. They want to make a deal. What kind of deal? Full confession, guilty pleas on all charges, and complete restitution in exchange for reduced sentences. How reduced? Richard and Heather would get 10 years instead of 20. Mrs. Peterson and Diane would get 5 years instead of 15. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. No deal. Are you sure? This would guarantee you get all your money back. Detective, these people tried to destroy my life. They stole from me, lied to me, and planned to have me committed to a mental institution. I want them to face the full consequences of their actions. I was hoping you'd say that. The trial was set for 6 months later, but I wouldn't be there to see it. 3 weeks after the arrests, I accepted the job in Singapore and put my house on the market. The house sold in 2 days to a lovely single mother who reminded me of myself. Strong, independent, and ready for a fresh start. On my last day in Meadowbrook Estates, Brenda threw me a going-away party. Half the neighborhood showed up, including several women who confided that they'd suspected their own husbands of financial impropriety and wanted advice on how to investigate. "You've started a revolution," Brenda said as we watched the sunset over the perfectly manicured lawns. "I've just shown people that they don't have to be victims. What's the first thing you're going to do in Singapore?" "Sleep, then maybe take a yoga class." We both laughed at that. "Seriously though, what's next for Carolyn Miller?" I thought about it. For the first time in years, I had complete control over my future. No husband to consider, no in-laws to appease, no one to answer to but myself. "I'm going to live my life on my own terms," I said, "and I'm going to help other women do the same." 6 months later, I was settled in Singapore, running a consulting firm that specialized in helping women navigate financial abuse and fraud. The Peterson family had all been convicted and sentenced to the maximum terms. Richard got 25 years, Heather got 20, Mrs. Peterson got 15, and Diane got 12. I'd recovered all my stolen money, plus damages, plus the proceeds from the sale of their properties. I was, by any measure, wealthy. But the real victory wasn't financial. The real victory was that I'd learned who I really was when pushed to my limits. I wasn't the passive, accommodating woman who'd spent 6 years trying to earn the approval of people who were robbing her blind. I was someone much more dangerous. And I was finally free to be that person. 2 years later, I was back in California for a conference on financial crime prevention, speaking to an audience of law enforcement officials, attorneys, and victim advocates. My story had become something of a legend in certain circles. The housewife who brought down an entire criminal family. I was staying at the same hotel where Richard and I had spent our honeymoon, which felt like poetic justice. The woman who'd checked in that night was confident, successful, and completely in control of her life. The conference was going well. I'd given my keynote speech that morning to a standing ovation, and I had meetings lined up with 3 different production companies interested in turning my story into a movie. But the best part was the text message I'd received from Detective Martinez. "Richard Peterson denied parole. Will serve full sentence. Thought you'd want to know." I was having dinner at the hotel restaurant, celebrating my small victory, when I saw a familiar face across the room. Heather Jones. She was supposed to be in federal prison for another 18 years, but there she was, sitting at the bar in an expensive dress, looking like she hadn't spent a day behind bars. I called Detective Martinez immediately. "Heather Jones is supposed to be in prison," I said, "but she's sitting 20 feet away from me right now." "That's impossible. Let me check." "Oh, hell. She was released 3 months ago on a technicality. Her lawyer found a procedural error in the search warrant. The conviction was overturned." "What about the restitution I was supposed to receive from her?" "Gone. She filed for bankruptcy immediately after her release. Everything she owned was liquidated to pay legal fees." I hung up and stared across the restaurant at the woman who'd helped destroy my marriage and steal my money. She was laughing with the bartender, flirting shamelessly, acting like she didn't have a care in the world. The old Carolyn would have left the restaurant, maybe changed hotels, definitely avoided any confrontation. But I wasn't the old Carolyn anymore. I walked over to the bar and took the seat next to her. "Hello, Heather." She turned, and I watched the color drain from her face. "Carolyn, what are you doing here?" "I'm in town for a conference, speaking about financial crimes and how to prosecute them effectively. What's your excuse?" "I live here now. Got out a few months ago." "So I heard. Congratulations on the technicality. Must have been expensive to find a lawyer good enough to overturn a federal conviction." She shifted uncomfortably. "I don't want any trouble." "Trouble? Why would there be trouble? You only helped my husband steal $2 million from me and plan to have me committed to a mental institution." The bartender was listening now, and Heather noticed. Can we talk somewhere private? I think here is perfect. Very public, lots of witnesses. Much safer for both of us. Carolyn, I know you hate me, but... Hate you? I don't hate you, Heather. Hate requires caring about someone, and I stopped caring about you the moment you were arrested. She took a large gulp of her martini. Then what do you want? I want to know how it feels. How what feels? How it feels to lose everything. Your business, your reputation, your freedom, your future. How does it feel to know that everyone in the city knows exactly who you are and what you did? You don't know what it's been like for me. You're right. I don't know what it's like to be a convicted felon who got out on a technicality. But I do know what it's like to have someone you trust steal everything from you. I signaled the bartender. I'll have what she's having, and put hers on my tab too. Consider it a going-away present. Going away? Oh, didn't you know? There's a new federal investigation into your case. Turns out overturning a conviction doesn't protect you from new charges based on evidence that wasn't used in the original trial. That was a complete lie, but her face went white. What new evidence? Let's just say the FBI has been very thorough in reviewing all the financial records from your little crime spree. They found some interesting connections to other cases, other victims. I leaned closer and lowered my voice. Here's what's going to happen, Heather. You're going to finish your drink, pay your tab, and leave this hotel. You're going to stay away from me, away from anyone connected to me, and away from any business that might involve financial services. You can't threaten me. I'm not threatening you. I'm giving you advice. Because if you ever cross my path again, if you ever try to run another scam, if you ever hurt another woman the way you hurt me, I will make it my personal mission to destroy you. You can't prove I'm doing anything illegal. I don't have to prove anything. I just have to make a few phone calls. Detective Martinez loves hearing from me. The FBI agents who worked your case are very interested in your post-prison activities. Your parole officer would probably love to know you're drinking in expensive hotels. I finished my martini and stood up. Enjoy your freedom while it lasts, Heather. Something tells me it won't be for long. I walked away, leaving her sitting at the bar with her mouth open. The next morning, I had breakfast with Brenda, who'd driven down from Meadowbrook to see me. You look amazing, she said. Singapore agrees with you. Singapore is perfect. Great job, great city, great life. Any regrets about leaving? I thought about it. The only regret I have is that it took me so long to figure out who I really was. And who are you? Someone who doesn't take shit from anyone anymore. We laughed, and Brenda filled me in on the neighborhood gossip. Apparently, my story had inspired 3 other women to investigate their husbands' finances, leading to 2 divorces and 1 criminal prosecution. You're like the patron saint of suspicious wives, Brenda said. I prefer cautionary tale for cheating husbands. After breakfast, I had one more stop to make before heading back to Singapore. I drove to the federal prison where Richard was serving his sentence. I hadn't seen him since his arrest 2 years earlier, and I was curious to see how prison had treated him. The answer was, not well. The man who walked into the visiting room bore little resemblance to the arrogant lawyer I'd married. He was thinner, greyer, and had the defeated look of someone who'd finally realized the consequences of his actions. Hello, Richard. Carolyn, you look good. I am good. Great, actually. We sat across from each other at a small table, separated by more than just physical space. I heard about your new job, he said. Singapore, right? That's right. I'm running my own consulting firm now. We help women who've been victims of financial abuse. He winced. Carolyn, I want you to know, don't apologize, don't explain, don't try to make me understand. I'm not here for closure or forgiveness or any of that therapy nonsense. Then why are you here? I'm here because I wanted to see you one more time before I completely forget you exist. He looked confused. What do you mean? I mean that for 2 years. You've been taking up space in my head. Even when I was building my new life, part of me was still angry at you, still processing what you did to me. But seeing you now, I realize something. What? You're not worth the energy. You're just a pathetic man who made terrible choices and is paying the price for them. You're not the villain in my story anymore. You're just nothing. I stood up to leave. Carolyn, wait. I turned back. Are you happy? He asked. I thought about my life in Singapore. My successful business, my beautiful apartment, the respect I'd earned in my field. I thought about the women I'd helped, the criminals I'd helped prosecute, the life I'd built entirely on my own terms. Richard, I'm not just happy, I'm free, and that's something you'll never understand. I walked out of the prison and didn't look back. On the plane to Singapore, I reflected on the past 2 years. I'd gone from being a victim to being an advocate. I'd turned my pain into purpose and my anger into action. But most importantly, I'd learned that the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. The best revenge is building a life so good that your enemies become irrelevant. As the plane lifted off, I opened my laptop and started working on my next project, a foundation to help women escape financial abuse. I was going to call it the Second Chances Foundation, because sometimes losing everything is just the beginning of getting everything you actually wanted. 6 months later, I was back in California for the foundation's launch event. The ballroom was packed with supporters, donors, and women who'd been helped by our programs. I was giving my speech when I noticed a familiar face in the back of the room. Heather Jones, looking desperate and defeated. After my speech, she approached me. Carolyn, I need help. Help with what? I'm broke. I can't get a job because of my record. I'm about to be evicted from my apartment. I looked at this woman who'd helped destroy my marriage and steal my money, who was now asking me for help. Heather, you have 2 options. You can apply for assistance through our foundation like anyone else, go through the screening process, and if you qualify, we'll help you find legitimate employment and housing. And the second option, you can figure it out yourself. She stared at me for a long moment. You're really not going to help me, are you? I'm offering you the same help I offer everyone, but I'm not going to give you special treatment because we have history. After everything that's happened, you can't find it in your heart to forgive me. I smiled. Heather, I forgave you a long time ago. Forgiveness was for me, not for you. But forgiveness doesn't mean I trust you, and it doesn't mean I owe you anything. So that's it? You're just going to let me end up on the streets? I'm going to let you face the consequences of your choices, just like I had to face the consequences of trusting the wrong people. She walked away, and I never saw her again. Later that evening, at the Foundation's celebration dinner, Brenda raised a toast to Carolyn Miller, who proved that the best revenge is living well. I raised my glass and looked around the room at all the people who'd come to support women like me, women who'd been betrayed, cheated, and stolen from, but who'd refused to stay victims. To second chances, I said, and to never underestimating a woman who's been pushed too far. As we clinked glasses, I realized that my story wasn't really about revenge at all. It was about transformation. The woman who'd discovered her husband's betrayal 2 years ago had been broken, desperate, and afraid. The woman sitting here tonight was strong, successful, and completely in control of her destiny. Richard Peterson had tried to destroy me, but instead, he'd created something much more dangerous. He'd created a woman who knew exactly what she was worth and exactly what she was capable of, and that woman was unstoppable.